Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 7th of February 2018. So coming to the first article, the manufacturing muddle. The opinion here is that without closing the loop of consumer demand and supply, neither GDP growth nor job growth will quicken. Now this article is very, very important. First and foremost, from an analysis point of view for the manufacturing sector in the country. Another importance is with regards to an analysis on the job creation issue in the country. Both an impetus to manufacturing and promoting Make in India, as well as creating more jobs for the economy, is something that are pressing concerns, and indeed in this respect the article is very, very important. Now coming to the context here is that in the budget 2018 and 19, the government has increased custom duty on certain select items like on electronics, on capital goods, also on silica used in manufacture of telecom grade optical fiber. Now why I have specifically given this particular example is because you need to understand that silica is used in the manufacture of telecom grade optical fiber, which means that this is an input. So this is what is the entire analysis here, that the custom duties have been increased on inputs, and this is something that is the core of our discussion with regards to an inverted duty structure. Now what you understand by an inverted duty structure is what is important. First and foremost, you need to understand that an inverted duty structure is a form of custom duty where the custom duties on few items, example raw material items or intermediate goods, is somehow more than the finished goods. For example, you have to make a television set. Now in this television set you will have some electronic chips or you will have some communicators. All of those, as compared to this entire television set as such, the input material will have more custom duty. So what happens because of this structure is, this inverted structure is, that it is beneficial to import a television set rather than import the input materials or the raw materials for a television set and manufacture television sets in this country. For example, the television set is for 20,000 rupees, and on this 20,000 rupees there is a custom duty of suppose 10%. So the entire cost of this television in the country will be 22,000 rupees if it is imported. However, for this television set, if the raw materials are to be imported and the television set is to be manufactured, and the structure is such that the custom duties on individual raw materials is very high, then what is going to happen is that the cost of this television set is going to increase to suppose 25,000. So what will happen is that it will be more beneficial for the customers to buy a imported television set rather than buy a television set which is manufactured in India. So this is what an inverted duty structure is, and this is what it does. In India at present there are a number of industries where there is an inverted duty structure. For example, it is there in the rubber industry. Because in custom duty on rubber is higher than the custom duty on tires. Also, for example, seaweeds are attracting a duty of 10%, while the raw material, that is agar, which is required for forming seaweeds, attracts a duty of 30%. So these kind of structures are there in the country. So this is indeed a major cause of concern, and this is something that has been analyzed here. Another thing is with regards to the free trade agreements. Now the author here has made a case that because of rising free trade agreements in the country, this inverted duty structure is something that is rising. This issue is expanding, and so there is a need to establish some checks on this free trade agreement, and in this aspect comes the third point, which is a model pact for free trade agreement. Now this is something that the government has mooted, and it is seeking that a model pact will be made for all free trade agreements so that this adverse impacts of the inverse duty structure are done away with. So this is something that is relevant. Now coming to the issues which have specifically been discussed in the editorial, the first issue is with regards to importing product versus importing the input. Now this is something that we have analyzed, that it is better that if an input is imported rather than the product. For example, it was better if a TV set was entirely not imported and rather the TV was manufactured in India, because this will result in value addition. If a particular raw material is something that is imported and some value addition is done, then that will not only ensure greater benefits to the economy, it will result in job creation, it will help better growth of the manufacturing sector. So all of that, it is better that inputs are imported rather than products. So that is something that has been discussed. Another thing is with regards to India's manufacturing sector being swamped. Now here the author has said that India's manufacturing sector has largely been swamped. This includes the small scale industries, the medium industries, and even the large manufacturing companies. And this is largely because of cheap imports from other neighboring countries, especially China. So that is something that is important. And also India's economy economy today is highly import intense. That means the imports are much more than the exports in the economy. So this is an issue. Another thing is that jobs in the country have continuously been on a decrease because the manufacturing sector in the country is unable to create jobs. So that is something that has been analyzed here. Another issue is with regards to share of manufacturing in GDP and employment. Now this, the author has said that this share of manufacturing sector in both the GDP as well as in creating employment is something that has stagnated since 1991, because after liberalization it is the manufacturing sector which has been the most worst impacted, and as a result of which the manufacturing sector has failed to create both GDP growth as well as employment. So that is something that is analyzed. Another thing which is important is the role of GST here. Now this, the author says that the GST, and in GST also specifically the integrated GST, which is the GST on interstate movement of goods. Here he says that this integrated GST has had somehow a positive impact on this structure of inverse duty structure, or the inverted duty structure, and this trend of inverted duty structure is somehow checked, and better manufacturing facilities are now going to be created because of the integrated GST. So that is something that has been analyzed. Now another analysis is specifically with regards to China, and this is the most important analysis in the entire editorial. Now here you need to understand that both India and China adopted different policy structures. Whereas China focused highly on its manufacturing sector and made it highly labor intensive, what happened in China is that the manufacturing sector grew tremendously, and because it was labor intensive, more and more people got employed, as a result of which poverty levels in China also decreased. Not only that, because of a large section of the population getting gainfully employed in the manufacturing sector, demand is something that rose in China, and this demand had a positive pull factor for other sectors in the economy, for example the agriculture sector. So this resulted in some degree of prosperous nature of the agriculture in China also. So this is something that has been analyzed, that a cycle was set up in China where demand and supply was balanced. However, this cycle was something that did not happen in India. This is largely because in the backdrop of manufacturing sector not providing adequate jobs, the citizens seeked for jobs in the construction sector. Despite the fact that construction sector did provide jobs, these jobs are not very well paid, as a result of which it was not a gainful employment, and this demand which should have been created did not happen, and the cyclical impact on agriculture sector in India again did not happen, and this resulted in less demand, and as a result of which there is an agricultural distress in the country. So this is something that has been analyzed with regards to Chinese economy as well as India's economy. So that is the major analysis here. Another thing is that the recent budget by the government of India has reversed these trends. This is something that the author is making a claim, that the budget has been a beneficial the step of raising custom duties in the budget is a beneficial step. So that is something that has been analyzed, and this is especially in the backdrop of accusations of protectionism. Now you need to know that just before the budget itself, the Prime Minister had recently visited the World Economic Forum in Davos, and Prime Minister has made a statement that protectionism is as dangerous as terrorism. So many people are saying that the Prime Minister has reiterated such statements on a global fora, but back home the same party is implementing protectionist measures, and it is being accused of going back to the pre-liberalization era, that is before 1990s. Now this is something that the author here has refuted. He has said, he has brought about the negatives of the liberalization aspect. He says that in the aftermath of 1991, the custom duties were not regulated in a smooth manner, rather they were regulated abruptly. For example, before 1991, a custom duty of 150% was something that was levied. Later in 1998, this reduced to 40% approximately, and then in 2008, it was approximately only 10%. So this pattern is largely a very abrupt one, and this, the author says, is a major cause of failure of manufacturing sector in the country, because of these abrupt changes, the entire manufacturing sector did not get adequate time to prepare for the global competitiveness. Also, they did not get time to raise their technology and raise their competence. So that is something that is being analyzed. Rather, if these custom duties would have been reduced gradually over a period of time, then maybe the manufacturing sector in India would have performed better, and it would have become more competitive as compared to the global market. So this is something that is analyzed, but definitely a flip side is also there. You should know that despite the fact that the manufacturing sector has suffered, it cannot be denied that the consumers in the country have really been benefited. Previously, consumers had to pay very high prices for low quality products, and in the aftermath of liberalization, a lot of benefits to the consumers have happened. So that is something that cannot be denied here. So that is one important analysis that you need to know. Another thing, as we've discussed before also, is with regards to the free trade agreements. These free trade agreements are resulting in a flooding of the Indian markets with cheap products, especially from China. You should know that with China we have a major irritant of the widening trade balance. For example, there is a gap of $70 billion in trade with respect to China. So that is something that is important. This was recently also raised with regards to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with the ASEAN. So definitely this is a pressing concern for India. Another analysis which is important in this article is with regards to job growth. Now you need to know that job creation in the country has indeed fallen, while the demand for job, the labor force, is something that has increased. So this is a major challenge for the economy. And the jobs have largely fallen because the manufacturing sector has failed to provide jobs. And in this backdrop, it was only two sectors which could have provided for jobs. One was the agriculture sector and the second was the services sector. Now, in the agriculture sector, the issue is that the jobs which the agricultural sector is going to create are first and foremost, it is a regressive step if there is going to be greater absorption in agriculture, because at present only 49% of the jobs are in the agriculture sector, while it only contributes something about 14 to 20% of the GDP. So you can see that there is a distress in the agricultural sector. So definitely agricultural sector is not a very profitable sector for creating jobs. That is one thing that is important. And with regards to services sector, you need to understand that there are some problems of skill in service sector. Any service job would require skill, and the skill is something that India's population at present does not have. So this high-end skilled job is something that could not benefit all, and this has resulted in inequality in the country. So that is something that is important. Another aspect is that even in the services sector, what happened is the large number of jobs which were created were also informal. So definitely in this respect also, it cannot be said that gainful employment is something that happened. So that is an issue of job growth in the country. This is the entire problem. Now coming to some analysis on the changes in the labor force. Now the labor force in the country is also continuously changing. Now since 1990s, there is a reduction in the population of the country. That is true, and as a result of which definitely the labor force is also going to decrease. But you need to understand that at present, the present time is of the demographic dividend. This is the bulge of the youth population. So this is the period where the maximum number of population is young, and as a result of which, despite the fact that the population is decreasing, you cannot say that the labor force is decreasing. The labor force is indeed increasing only. Not only that, now the labor force is in the aftermath of the right to education and other such initiatives by the government. What is happening is that the youth is staying more in the education sector, and so the youth that is coming for jobs, the demand for jobs is largely based on by the educated youth, and so this educated youth is now unwilling to go into the agricultural sector or the informal service sector, and rather they are also unwilling to go into the construction sector. As I mentioned, construction was a major provider of jobs in the country. So this is a problem, and this is resulting in a problem of job creation in the country and unemployment in the country. So this is something that is analyzed. At present, the educated youth wants white collar jobs either in the public sector or in the private sector. So that is something that is important and which has been analyzed. Another analysis is with regards to a fall in agriculture jobs. Now, definitely there has been a fall in the agricultural jobs from 60% in the year 2000 to now only 49%. So definitely this decrease has happened, but this decrease is not something that has happened at the pace at which it should have happened. The agriculture sector, the people working in the agriculture sector need to be gainfully employed in other sectors, and this is indeed an issue. However, it is being seen that after 2012, there is a trend that a large number of youth is again going back to agriculture sector. And this is because of poor job creation in the manufacturing sector. When the youth will have no other choice, it will be compelled to go into the agriculture sector. And this is a regressive step, because now majority of the youth is educated, and if with these rising education levels, it is a step back that this youth is not being gainfully employed and they are being compelled to go back to agriculture sector. So this is something that is important. Another thing is that the aspirations of the youth are now not to join the agriculture sector. So that is another thing which you should understand, that the aspirations of the youth in the country is something that is not being met. So that is an analysis. Another thing is with regards to the falling growth rates. Now we all know that recently there have been a fall in the growth rates. This was also in the aftermath of the GST and demonetization demonetization. Here again the author is saying that in the aftermath of GST and demonetization, the sector which has been worst impacted is the manufacturing sector, and so jobs in the manufacturing sector have further gone down. So that is the analysis here. Also, a good aspect of these two, GST as well as demonetization, is something that it has ensured formalization of jobs, as more number of people have now registered in the Employees Provident Fund organization, but this does not mean that newer jobs is created. So that is the entire analysis of this particular editorial. Some vital suggestions have been given. All these suggestions will be targeted at improving the manufacturing sector. So everything that you can construe in this regard will form a suggestion. For example, doing away with the inverted duty structure. This, as I mentioned before, has been done by the GST. Also, the budget has advocated for that. So definitely this is an issue. Another thing is solving the twin balance sheet problem. This will boost the manufacturing sector in the country, as the banks will be able to give more credit, and the companies who are facing severe challenges can be wound up, can be allowed to exit through the insolvency and bankruptcy code. Another thing is that the rupee versus dollar stability is something that is vital. If the rupee strengthens compared to the dollar, because of an increased flow of dollars in the economy, if the rupee is strengthened, then what will happen is that the exports will become expensive, and this is again going to impact the manufacturing in the country. So that is something that is important. Another thing is that the demand in the economy needs to be increased, and this can only be increased if the distress in agricultural sector and the rural economy is done away with. If there is prosperity amongst the farmers, then definitely a demand will increase in the country, and this demand can boost local manufacturing. So that is what is analyzed. So all of these initiatives, if the government is going to take, for example, even if it wants to boost manufacturing policy in the country, for that it is being advocated that the industrial policy by Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion must be soon released, and it should be in line with improving manufacturing in the country. So all of those steps will indeed give a boost to manufacturing sector, which will have an impact directly on the job creation. So indeed this article is very, very important, as I mentioned before also. So that is the relevance of the editorial. Now coming to the next article, a roster of questions. Now the context here is with regards to the roster in Supreme Court. Now in the background aspect, we all know that recently 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court held a press conference and accused the Chief Justice of making the roster in a faulty manner. So that is what is the context. Now recently, after this press conference, the first roster has been released by the Supreme Court. That is, after the conference, this is the first roster released by the Chief Justice. So what are the issues related to this roster is what is the context of this editorial. Now coming to the issues which have been discussed. The first issue is with regards to an objectivity and fairness in the roster. Now you need to know that the roster is prepared by the Chief Justice. He is the master of the roster. However, here a case is being made that despite the fact that it is being made by the Chief Justice, what is vital is that the principles of objectivity and fairness is something that is retained in the roster, as this will ensure confidence amongst other judges. So that is something that is important. Another issue is with regards to the exclusion of senior judges. The senior judges in the press conference had claimed that major cases are not being given to them, and they are being given important cases of important national interest are being given to junior judges. So this is a trend which needs to be reversed. So that is something that has been discussed. Another thing with regards to the current roster, some analysis is given. Now here the author is making a claim that the current roster is again not solving the issue. Rather, it has aggregated all important cases to the Chief Justice, and also mundane cases have been given to the senior judges, and especially the judges who had called for the press conference. So the matter is indeed not resolved. The matter is continuing to be festering. So that is indeed a cause of concern with regards to the current roster. Another thing that you need to understand here is the court of equals concept. Now you need to know that the Chief Justice and the other judges in the Supreme Court are equals. It is not that the other judges are answerable to the Supreme Court, or they are inferior to the the other judges are answerable to the Chief Justice, or the other judges are in any way inferior to the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice is only first amongst equals. So all judges here are equal. So this principle should be followed in allocation of cases as per the roster, and excessive power by the Chief Justice of India is something that is being criticized, and power here should be used judiciously and not in an autocratic manner, as indisciplined exercise of authority will lead to subversion of democracy. So that is the analysis that is given. Another thing is that, which is vital here, is that a model for a fair roster has been given in this editorial. Here the author has said that all the important cases should be divided subject wise, and depending on the expertise and experience of the judges, these cases should be allocated to them. Also, politically sensitive matters for the country should be exclusively given to the 5 senior most judges in the country, and other cases which are of equal importance, they should be allocated to individual judges and not by some discretion of a human being. Rather, this allocation should be done randomly through computer allocations. So use of technology in allocation of cases is something that has been advocated here. So this is something that you could suggest in your answers also. So that is something that is important. Another analysis is with regards to collective decision making. Now you should know that in the year 1993, in the third judge's case, the idea of collegium was mooted by the Supreme Court itself, and here the author is making a case that if the Supreme Court can decide upon who should be appointed as the judges based upon a collective decision making by the collegium, then why shouldn't this principle of collegium be expanded to establishing the roster, and why should this power be singularly concentrated in the Chief Justice of India? So definitely this is a good suggestion that the collegium itself can set up the roster. That is a suggestion, and this is indeed a good example which you can use in your answer. So that is something that has been given. Another thing is with regards to Supreme Court's image. Now, time and again we have discussed that this entire episode of this press conference by the judges has tarnished the image of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the supreme custodian of people's rights, and this image can only be restored if there is greater transparency and accountability of the court, and indeed the court should take steps in this regard. The current roster is not in line with ensuring or re-establishing this image, so that is something that is important. This entire controversy with regards to judiciary is very, very important for this year. So that is the relevance of this article. Coming to the next article, winter cheer. Now, the context of this article is with regards to the Winter Olympics of 2018, which are being held in Pyongyang in South Korea. Now, this article is not very important, but two issues are what are relevant. First is the issue of Russia doping. Now, a large number of athletes from Russia had been accused of doping, and the International Olympic Committee even found this to be true, and it has imposed certain restrictions on all the athletes. It has banned Russian athletes of participating in the Winter Olympics. Now, what is important here is that some athletes who were not guilty of doping, they have been allowed by the International Olympic Committee, and they have been allowed to participate as under the title of Olympic athletes from Russia, and they will not be participating under the Russian flag or the Russian national anthem, but rather as a separate community. Now, it is this decision which has been objected to by other countries, as they are saying that this is a huge number of athletes who are participating under this category of OAR, and this is something that is not going to ensure an adequate deterrence on Russia. So that is something that is analyzed. Now, what is the importance of this issue for you? This importance is in the ethics paper. Now, here you need to analyze that is it right for the International Olympic Committee to allow these athletes who are not guilty of doping to participate in the Olympics, or should it pay heed to the global criticism that to teach a lesson to this country, even the people who are not directly responsible should be punished? So that issue is something that is important in ethics, as how much importance needs to be given to national identity. So that is something that is relevant here. Another importance of this Winter Olympics, as we have discussed previously also, is with regards to North Korea and the South Korea issue. These Olympics are being held in South Korea, and it was being feared that with North Korea and all the tensions in North Korea and nuclearization problems in North Korea, that it was feared that the safety of the athletes will not be ensured in South Korea. However, this has been done away with because North Korea and South Korea have decided to renegotiate, and they have come on the negotiation table. And not only that, they have displayed bohemia on the field. They have been marched together under a unified Korea flag. Also, there was a combined women's ice hockey team. North Korea has sent 22 athletes to participate in South Korea. So definitely this is something that is important. Now, what is the relevance of this particular analysis? The relevance is in soft diplomacy. Now, time and again this issue is being raised. For example, Pakistani actors in India have been banned. Often, whenever there is tension, there is political tensions between India and Pakistan, we ban cricket matches. So, in this respect, this example is a stark example that how soft diplomacy can sometimes be so much beneficial to resolve the biggest of tensions. We all know that there was huge tension in the Korean Peninsula, and North Korea was unwilling to come to the negotiating table. And in the backdrop of these Olympics is what has resulted in this newer partnership between these two countries. So that is where this example has to be used. That is the importance of this. Now coming to the next article, rethinking protectionism. Now the context here is about the protectionist stand which has been taken by United States of America. The policy that America has follows is that of America first. So that is the entire context. Now some important issues is what has been analyzed here. First and foremost issue is with regards to the sustainability of protectionism. Now what is being seen is that initially, even during election time, President Trump had taken a very hard protectionist stand. This stand is something that is not sustainable is what has been analyzed in this particular editorial. This is because US has to now reverse its stand. The hardline stand taken by President Trump is something that is backfiring now, and the country US has been isolated globally. And in this respect, what is being analyzed is that no matter how much ever protectionism a country is going to do in today's modern time, this is neither sustainable, and also it is something that is self-limiting, and indeed it will require reversal steps. So that is something that has been analyzed. This debate on globalism and anti-globalism is something that is very current. So whenever you are supposed to justify globalism, you can use this idea that protectionism is not sustainable and it is self-limiting. So that is the relevance of this analysis. Another thing is that President Trump has made a newer policy. Previously the policy was America first, but now he has made an addition to this policy where he has said that America first does not necessarily mean that America only. So America first does not mean America only, and rather America is open to participating with other countries. So that is the analysis. Another analysis is with regards to the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Now we all know that last year US had backed out from this partnership agreement, and from the 12 countries, only 11 countries were left. So these 11 countries did not decide to dissolve this agreement. Rather, they regrouped and they formed a newer agreement which is going to be renamed as the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. So in this respect, US is now reconsidering to join the TPPA. So that is one analysis, that US has been unable to successfully implement protectionist policy and is now re-looking to join this agreement. So that is vital. Another thing is that US is keen on joining now the North American Free Trade Agreement. Here again it is proved that protectionist policies are not going to work, as US is keen to join this agreement with Mexico and Canada, and we know that there is a protectionist stand by US to build a wall along Mexico. So that is something that's vital here. Another thing is with regards to the unfair trade practices by China. Now time and again US has been criticizing these practices by China, and it has been accusing China of intellectual property theft. Also it is being criticized for dumping in US. So all of that is true, but even for doing away with these unfair trade practices, US needs the support of other countries. For example, it needs the support of Canada, it needs the support of European Union. So that is something that is vital, that for any policy to be implemented, what is important is that other countries also support. So that is the analysis. These issues are something that you can use in the globalization, anti-globalization debate. Also on justifying the importance of WTO, they have a relevance. So indeed this article has some importance for UPSC. That is why we discussed it. Now coming to the questions based on today's discussion, I'm sure you shall be able to attempt these 3 questions. So I would suggest please attempt these questions within the word limit. So with this we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching today's video, and I hope to see you tomorrow.